And we were just talking about education, and while we're starting to see some good outcomes in certain demographics within the African American community, for instance, like African American women, as far as the level of education being the most educated demographic in the country. But when we're talking about on the elementary school level, middle school, high school level, those disparities between the schools in predominantly minority communities versus the schools in other communities are still there, and some of those gaps are widening. Those schools are underfunded, they are understaffed, and the staff that they do have a lot of times are the beginning teachers. So the teachers that have experience move from those schools into the schools in the better neighborhoods, and so it's helping to sort of perpetuate the cycle of the sort of outcomes that we're seeing, the differences of outcomes that we're seeing between African Americans and other minorities and other cultural groups. What do you think needs to be done to try to level the playing field and give minorities and again, African Americans in particular, to put them on a balanced playing field so where they're able to get the same sort of educational outcomes and have the same sort of opportunities as their peers from other cultural groups?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, this is a deep rooted systemic racial problem.
Mm-hmm.
Schooling, schooling, busing. I mean, how far did we go back to talk about busing and how controversial that has been, from busing kids from one neighborhood to another neighborhood for better schooling? That's something that still exists to this day. We see that as an issue from the 40s and 50s and 60s, where Black kids were bused to white schools and egged and, having things thrown at them, having to have security escort them in. We still have the issue today,
Right.
but just everything is systemic to where it's hidden, because you can't be racist and throw something at someone on the street like you could back in 1950. So I think we need to pay attention to school board races.
Mm-hmm.
We need to pay attention to county commission races and city commission races. So a lot of stuff that I've been seeing on social media is not just catch or fire and arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor, or hold accountable the officers in George Floyd, or whatever. I've been seeing a lot of stuff about vote, and the problem is we're talking about vote, but people don't know what to vote for. Like telling people to vote, that's easy. People in their communities and their states and their cities are going to find out about elections, but they're not going to take the time to find out about the county commission or the school board, but they need to.
Absolutely.
So we need to educate people on how important it is to talk about those races. And that's what I used to do when I was a reporter, bro. I can send you some stories where I said, wait a minute, stop worrying about Donald Trump or Biden or Barack or whatever. Worry about your judges. Your judge can give you can take away a traffic ticket or can sentence you to death. Who do you think has more power in your life? You need to be worried about that judge, that school board member, and then the president.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that I was harping on leading into this 2016 election with Donald Trump, where people kept looking at Donald Trump and comparing him to Hillary Clinton. And a lot of people, there was a long campaign to make Hillary Clinton out to be a bad person, right? It started from when her husband was president, and it continued right up through when she ran for office. And you notice it stopped since she lost, right? So that tells you that it was a calculated and purposeful campaign. But I kept telling people, even if you don't like Hillary Clinton, understand that the next president is going to be appointing several Supreme Court justices. So far, Donald Trump has appointed two, both of them far right leaning, and some would say unqualified for the position. He's appointed over 100 plus federal judges, right? Some of them fresh out of law school, having never even tried a case before. But the only qualification has been they had to be ultra conservative. And so that was the issue that I thought that was most important in the 2016 election. And a lot of people just didn't, they weren't looking that deep into it. And so understanding that those judges are the ones that are going to be creating the case law that's going to have an impact for the next, 50, 60 years, because those are lifetime appointments. And some of those appointments to those federal benches those attorneys are in their 20s. So they have a good 70, 60, 70 years to sit on the bench making laws. And so understanding how important that is, yes, we do need to make sure that we're voting down ballot because that has a direct impact on you in your community, in your state, et cetera. But we definitely can't neglect the national elections, trying to flip the Senate, trying to hold on to the House, and getting Donald Trump out of office.
Right. No, that was a great statement you just made. And this goes back to what I said, how there's a lot of people who are quiet, who are in the trenches, ready to vote, who are just sitting down like, all this protest stuff is cute. All this, all this stuff y'all doing on social media is cute, but I'm still going to get my ass up and go vote for Trump.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. It's crazy. My closest friend right now is a Trump supporter, and I'll tell you how that happened. I met him when I first moved out here, a white guy from Georgia, and he wants to do the same thing I want to do. I want to be a game show host. He wants to do the same, national TV host. And man, we just hit it off as boys, and a very good dude, very good person overall. But I would hear him say little stuff here and there like, man, that Hillary Clinton, and then eventually after like a year of us being close, he was like, man, you could probably tell I'm Republican or whatever. And we have civil discourses, but he goes off on Hillary Clinton all the time. And I'm like, bro, she's not in office. What are you talking about? He was like, man, did you hear that Hillary Clinton's being investigated again for such and such? I'm like, bro, she's not in office. She hasn't been in office for a long time. But like they hate Hillary Clinton with a passion. And he doesn't understand a lot of the stuff going on. And luckily, he's not one of those like insane Trump people who just doesn't listen. He hears me out and he listens to me. And that's what we need to do, Rod, is we need to have discussions with these people. A lot of folks will just turn a blind eye to someone who's a Trump supporter or whatever and just say they're gone to the wind. I can't talk to them. A lot of them you can talk to. And I try to do that as someone who has a lot of perspective. I try to talk to them and give them my perspective. And some are willing to listen, some aren't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I have a few friends and know a few people that also support Trump. Some who've changed their mind and have indicated it. I don't know what they're gonna do when they get in the voting booth, but as far as our discussions, they've indicated they're not going to vote for him again. And I think this with this COVID thing is showing that in a crisis that he just doesn't have the level of competence to handle a crisis like this COVID outbreak.
Correct.
And so that's important. The next crisis, who knows? It could be something that literally threatens. I mean, obviously, COVID has threatened a lot of lives and taken a lot of lives around the country and around the world. But it could be something that's more of an immediate threat. And we see how he handles this, and that doesn't bode well for him handling something more severe and more acute, more immediate. And I think that's a problem.
On that point, real quick. I don't think a lot of people understand how bad he messed it up. A lot of people are blaming it on China, which is fine. A lot of people are blaming it on, the local governments, which is fine. But you got to remember back, because, when I was a reporter, I did a lot of stories about infectious disease. And you got to look back to Ebola, and everything is different. Obviously, coronavirus spreads a lot easier than Ebola. But when it came to Ebola, it was a lot more, it was taken a lot more serious by Barack Obama, and, people are saying like, oh, H1N1, he didn't do well, whatever, but like that didn't kill 100,000 people. So, but with Ebola, you got to remember people were getting pissed off because they were getting taken off of a plane and immediately quarantined.
Right.
You were immediately quarantined in your home and people were pissed. Now people had to self-quarantine and do it. And it took us forever to quarantine. I mean, we were already infested by the time, we got the message that this is bad. And 100,000 plus people have died. And that's what the concern was for Trump. The concern wasn't that he wasn't going to have the economy booming. The concern was that he wasn't going to, do some things well. The concern was, what if we have to go to war? How is this dude going to handle it?
Yeah.
What if we have, God forbid, a pandemic? Well, look at how he handled it. Not good. And for anyone who tries to give him excuses or whatever, because I know people doing it. Some bros, I know some bros have been giving him excuses. there is no excuse for it. He could have handled it better. So could have local governments, but this was a federal government issue.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think we're in agreement on the fact that we definitely need a change at the top as far as leadership
Right.
goes. I'm just hoping that people turn out and to vote and don't allow some of these efforts that we see in place, like what took place in Kentucky, where they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to suppress a certain segment of the voting population to try to increase their chances of maintaining power. You know, it's been demonstrated that the only way that in most instances on a national level that Republicans can win national elections is when the vote is suppressed or when there's low voter turnout. And so that's always
Right.
their game, is to try to suppress the vote. We know that the Russians targeted our community in particular in 2016 with misinformation on social media and everything else, and helped to suppress that vote. And if we had just turned out, 2 percentage points higher in certain states like Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, we would be talking about President Clinton and not President Trump. And in my opinion, things would have been handled a lot differently as it pertains to this pandemic and some of the other issues that we've seen that happen during this term or during Trump's presidency.